I want you to start to see that there are some other things that you can start to do to be able to get yourself actual influence and authority.
Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms.
Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. I am going to be doing a 3-part podcast series for you called Behind Closed Doors, where I am revealing what it actually takes to get yourself promoted into a higher level leadership position, and more importantly, to have the influence and the authority and the power and the autonomy and all the things that you really want out of your career once you actually get there. And this is not a very straightforward approach in the sense that it's not obvious, even though it sort of feels like it does, right? It sort of feels like it is obvious. And in this series, I hope to reveal why there's a discrepancy between the information that we're receiving about what it's going to take to actually advance our careers or to have that influence and authority, and what it actually takes to do that. So my goal is to reveal to you exactly what, my clients are actually doing to get themselves into those positions of influence and authority, and what you can start to do in the new year. So think of this as your 90-day blueprint for 2026 as you begin to think about, what do I want to do differently in the new year, and what are those goals? Like, what do I actually want to achieve, and how am I going to get there? So here you go. The first thing I want to point out is you probably heard a lot of podcast episodes at the end of 2025 when I was talking about, hey, get it together and schedule those 15-minute ally meetings now. And so, unfortunately, I think in terms of my own personal advice, that's absolutely true. The best time for you to schedule 15-minute ally meetings would have been at the end of 2025, like in November, December. And this is counterintuitive because it sort of feels like, hey, people are offline, people are kind of checking out for the holidays, they don't want to meet up. But the truth is, this is the best opportunity to meet up with folks, to get them to really open up and be more natural and less like work focused. And honestly, once we get work focused, which happens now in January again, that's when a lot of the BS advice starts to come out. And it's like, they're busy, they're starting to think about their own goals, how they want to get ahead, whatever it is they need to accomplish for their team in 2026, and they're not really thinking about you. Whereas in 2025, there's an open, or like at the end of the year, there's an openness to possibility. So I'm sharing this with you. Hindsight is 2020. I wish you would have been able to set yourself up a little bit more successfully towards the end of the year. If you didn't, oh well, like what the heck are we supposed to do except for move forward? But the reason why I tell you this is because it's a great introduction to why the advice that we received and why the messages that we receive in terms of success and what it's going to take to be successful is very mixed. Why our advice is kind of jumbled up and it can feel really confusing as to what advice that we're going to take. And the first reason is because the advice that we're given is through the lens of the person who is giving us the advice. And the person who is giving us the advice has 2 agendas in mind. They have the one agenda, which is like really kind of like their selves, right? Very selfish. They're busy. They're not busy. They're open-minded. They're not open-minded. Then the second advice is there is a facade to corporate leadership. And we hate this facade. And this is part of what frustrates us is that, people seem fake, or that, they don't really tell us the whole truth and all of those things. And we wish that the world was more open and more giving and more forgiving, and we could really truly be our authentic selves at work. But the truth is that we actually can't. And so the best executive leaders and the people who have had the most success have often had the most success for understanding politics and understanding that corporate facade. And quite frankly, for the women that I work with inside of the Leadership Table Mastermind, if you're listening, we understand. We understand the corporate facade, right? It's like actually we've pulled back the curtain. We know who is actually operating the machinery in there. And then we choose to do something differently about it, right? So, all of the women who've been working with me for several years are actually very well aware of the facade and they're working accordingly. And that's fine, right? This is okay for us to embrace the politics of corporate leadership. It's not only okay, it's the game. And I think a lot of women feel like if I break free from corporate leadership and like start my own company, which is fantastic. I've had a lot of clients do that, especially in 2025, go out and start their own businesses. They find that that corporate facade is still there, right? When they're pitching, when they're selling, when they're trying to build their own business, that they struggle with some of the, getting through the political landscape, right? So the game is always the same. This is the game of life. This is the game that we're playing. And I think the more knowledgeable and aware that you can be while you're playing the game of life, while you're playing the game of your career, then it's better, right? Like I want you to go into 2026 eyes open, fully ready and available to all kinds of possibilities and actually know what you're getting into, right? So this could actually be a goal for you in 2026 is to really become more aware, more knowledgeable, and more outspoken in that sense, right? Like really embracing the fact that you get it. You get the game that is being played. So, let me give you a couple of different examples, and then we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about how you can begin to interpret the advice and the feedback that you're being given. And then in the other two episodes of this series, I'm going to talk about how you can begin to leverage and build those relationships so that you can be essentially in charge of your own career, in charge of your communication strategies, in charge of your success once you actually get promoted into those higher level leadership positions. This is my wish for you, and this is completely available to you, but you have to understand and you have to know what's actually going on behind closed doors. All right, so I want to give you a couple of examples that came up for my clients in 2025. So, this is going to have to do with advice and different logical advice that they were given, and also their interpretation of who their allies were at their organization. I had a woman who was, I think she was a senior manager. And the reason why I pause is because she was definitely operating at that senior director level for a very long time in her career. And she had a boss who was an incredible advocate for her career, right? So he would help her as an ally. He would help her get into rooms. He would, be her cheerleader, be her champion. And then, of course, I mean, long story short, he left the organization, right? So I think this was actually a couple of years ago. So he left the organization before she actually transitioned into the higher level director position. I think he might have even been responsible for one promotion for her. So she felt very grateful and really appreciative of his leadership. He was a fantastic leader, and I'm not going to knock his ability to help her and support her, but his ability to help her and support her was limited, right? So he appreciated her as a leader. And I think everything that he was telling her was very truthful. But the problem at the end of the day is that he didn't actually have the ability to promote her specifically in her area of expertise, right? So then when she hired me as her coach, I quickly evaluated and was able to pinpoint what was happening. And it was actually because her area of expertise was not valued at the organization as an influential area of expertise, right? And the funny thing is when asked, when I talked to her about her career path, she didn't even really care about her area of expertise. What she cared about was having influence, was actually being able to help the organization. And oftentimes, what she would find is that she had these really brilliant ideas and nobody seemed to care about them. And so I looked at that for face value, right? Because as, one of the things that it's really important for you to realize is as a woman, we're incredibly intuitive and generally speaking, we know what the heck is going on. Right. So we know when people aren't listening to us, we know that it seems like our words aren't valued. The problem is that we end up interpreting that as our own personal value. So we say we're not good enough. But I was able to pinpoint, I was like, I don't think anybody really cares about the work that you do. Right? She's like, I know, it really seems that way. Okay. So that's the first place that we had to embrace was actually being able to see the writing on the wall. So when I say behind closed doors, what I mean is nobody at her organization is actually going to tell her, we don't care about the work that you do. Like, why would anybody actually ever tell her that except for me as her coach? I was like, I don't think they care about the work that you do. So you can continue advocating for yourself. You can continue speaking up. You can continue, putting yourself out there, all these things that are supposed to help you advance your career. And you're never going to get anywhere if nobody gives 2 cents about anything that you do. Right now, the problem is they actually need her in her job, right? Like they need her at the level that she's at, but they don't care about her work and at those higher executive levels, right? The CEO doesn't care about this. The C-suite doesn't care about that work. And so this is one thing that is really difficult for women to manage is like understanding what it is that matters to higher level leaders. So when we look at this idea of getting behind closed doors and actually opening up possibilities, it's like, how do we speak up and become an advocate for the things that actually matter to the organization, not just that matter to us? So you see, when you're good at what you do, the thing that matters to you is like the only thing that matters, right? But if you really want to think about advancing your career, you want to think about what matters to the organization, right? And so that's why you have to kind of get behind closed doors. So the first thing that we did is we ended up building a relationship with her boss's boss, right? So he's the one who was really calling the shots at the company. Obviously, her boss, her current boss, not her original ally boss, but her current boss, who she felt like was not an ally at all and didn't care about her career. Fast forward to the ending, right? He's the one who ended up actually advocating for her the most and got her into finally that higher level leadership position. This is how it actually works when you start to break open those doors and you start to see the writing on the wall. You start to see what is like foggy and doesn't seem clear. Once it starts to like break through the fog, you're able to really figure out what it is that you can do next. Okay. So she started building a relationship with her boss's boss. And now that she was neutralized emotionally, this is often a technique that I work on with my clients is how do we become neutral emotionally so that we can actually hear what's going on in these conversations. And so she was like, yeah, he never talks about the work that I do, right? He doesn't actually care. He's talking about all different other kinds of initiatives at the company. And so then she ended up being able to position herself on one of those higher profile projects. She was able to build this relationship with her boss's boss. So then her boss started to respect her a little bit more. And she actually ended up telling her boss that she was willing to switch groups, which is a really vulnerable thing to do, right? To actually tell your boss, hey, I'm willing to leave this group because what I care about is the organization, right? And so essentially, what I care about is the impact I can make at the organization. What I care about is how can I be the most effective at this company? And if in my current role, I'm capped out, if I'm the bottleneck, if I'm the person who is the highest in command and I don't even feel like I'm making a difference, then that's not where I want to be. Right. So she was able to really position herself in a different group. And fast forward, both of her bosses, her boss and her boss's boss, were able to support her and advocate for her moving into a different department. Okay. And now she received more influence, more authority, and is able to begin to figure out those skills of executive leadership because now she is no longer the subject matter expert in that field, but she has to delegate, which is another challenge that a lot of women have when they're subject matter experts and they're really good at the job that they do is letting go. So I'm sharing this story with you because I want you to see that the advice that we're given, which of course her new boss probably told her several times, like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. I'll do the best I can. There might be a promotion opportunity for you in a couple of years, hang tight, all of those different things in the advice category that you might receive. Keep, hitting your numbers, keep hitting your targets. People will see it, right? None of that is true, right? None of that is true because you've done it before and you've seen somebody else not do it and get promoted. So that that's not true and that's not what actually equals advancement in your career. But what you can't do is figure out like what to do instead. So that's where this series comes in. Is I want you to start to see that there are some other things that you can start to do to be able to get yourself actual influence and authority. As you are beginning to navigate this advice in 2026, I want to give you 3 gut checks, 3 ways that you can begin to interpret advice and decide if that advice that you're receiving behind closed doors is actually the advice that you want to receive, right? That you want to actually act on. Okay. And this is all coming from my personal belief and also my observations of women in leadership, high performing women, high achieving women, women who've had a great deal of success up until a certain point in their careers. And then they just sort of find themselves in this stuck, icky, weird place, but they know that they're ready for more, right? Is that emotionally speaking, intuitively speaking, we are incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. We know exactly what is going on. And this is because, when I point it out, they say, oh, you're right. This is terrible. Oh, I totally get it. This is not working for me. Like we all know it intuitively that it's not the right direction or that it's not what we're supposed to be doing. But because of programming, because women are, have been manipulated in society and the media. We also know all of that is true. And I'm not getting into the politics of that, but we know that our intuition is not just our own intuition, right? Like we could be trying to be the good girl, or we could be trying to be grateful because that's what we were told, or maybe we've had more success than anybody else in our family has ever had. And so that could feel like, why do I keep asking for more? Why does it matter if I have more money or higher titles, right? And a lot of this has to do with society, because what I care about personally is that you deserve that seat at the table. Like, why not you? Why not have all the money, all the influence, everything you ever wanted in your life without the headaches, without the stress, without constantly having to prove yourself? That is absolutely available to you, but you have to know that, right? You have to know that going forward, and you have to be able to say, hey, this is what I want to do. So these are the 3 things that I think that you can begin to ask yourself and check in with yourself as you're receiving this advice. So as you're starting to open up those doors, getting behind closed doors, building these relationships that I'm suggesting in 2026 in these next 90 days, I want you to begin to look at the advice that you're receiving through the lens of how it makes you feel and what are those actions that you're going to take as a result of said advice. All right. So the first type of advice that, generally speaking, that you might receive is the advice that you need to be doing something more, that you need to, work harder or hit your numbers, be better at your job. All of this type of advice that says, count your calories, like anything like that, where it's like, I need to become something different. I need to do something more. Right. And then when you receive this advice, I want you to ask yourself how it feels. Like, what's the action that you want to take, right, from that advice? Okay. So, when you receive this very direct advice that you need to essentially change yourself, what is the action that comes out of it? And typically speaking, and you could move into some of these later feelings, right? So these are all relative to you in particular, is if you start to feel stupid, frustrated, ignorant, like, I don't know what I'm doing, maybe they're right. And it leads you in one of two directions. One is like, I need to change myself. I need to, create a New Year's resolution. I need to resolve to do better. I need to fix myself, like whatever that might be. Typically, that's because there's some sort of shame involved, whether it's self-induced shame or it's actually shame from the person who's giving you the advice, because like I said, all advice is coming through the lens of the other person. Then you want to ask yourself, like, hey, why do I feel like I need to change all of these aspects of my body, right? Like, why do I need to change all of these aspects of my executive leadership, like whatever that might be, right? So if you start to feel really tight in your body and you feel that, like, I guess for lack of a better word, you feel stupid, you feel like shame, you feel yucky, all any of those feelings, then this type of advice may not be the best advice for you. The other side of you can receive the exact same advice and maybe perhaps you start to give up. You start to tell yourself, like, I've tried that before, it doesn't work. I should just be happy. 2026 is just going to be a year for me to, slow down, spend time with my family. I don't need to worry about my career. I'm not going to get a promotion right now. It doesn't matter. Anything where you start to lower your expectations and the actions that you're going to take are going to be sort of like I'm done with this crap, right? So whether or not it's like I need to completely fix myself or I'm done with all this advice, I can't do this anymore. I just need to focus on my job and I'll figure out what's next in the future. Either way, what's happening for us is not great, right? This is not the best advice that you want to receive or that is going to actually motivate you to do something differently. Obviously, we've tried the buckle down, change ourselves approach. It hasn't worked. And then we've also tried the resolve approach. And unfortunately, the resolve approach and like not the good side of letting go, but sort of like giving up side of letting go also leads to a lot of frustration in the long run, right? And so I want to offer to you a third way of interpreting advice in a way that actually helps you motivate and figure out what to do next. And unfortunately, a lot of times when I say behind closed doors, this advice is coming from people like me. And I'm not saying just me. So we have inside my Women's Leadership Accelerator, we have a group of executive mentors that are guiding you. And these are women that I've been working with. Oh God, some of them, 2019, one of the women in the group, I started working with her then. And so these are women who've been through it. They understand and they have interpreted and they see the politics and they understand the writing on the wall. So whenever you have somebody as a mentor or a coach or somebody who's giving you advice that makes you feel this way, is sort of like this feeling of like, oh shit, she's right. Like that kind of feeling, like I don't want to do that, but I can tell that she's right. Okay. So the advice or the actions that we don't want to take are like the ones that are like, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to figure this out. I got to work harder. I got to push through. Or the other advice, which is like, I give up. I don't want to deal with this anymore. This is a bunch of crap. We want to find that middle spot that's we're like, what is the advice that I'm receiving that makes me say, oh, crap, she's right. I don't want to do this, but ... right? So this happens for me a lot when I offer the advice of 15-minute ally meetings. So I really have to get to the bottom of it. I have to figure out, who is the person that you're not meeting with that you really could be meeting with. So in the example I gave at the beginning of this podcast episode, it was the woman, was definitely not meeting with her boss's boss, right? So she had the, oh crap, kind of feeling like, oh, she's right. I really need to build a relationship with him, but I don't feel like it. Part of the reason that she didn't feel like it is because she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how those meetings were going to go. She didn't know how it was going to affect her boss. So having some coaching and guidance around that, I gave her the permission and the strength to be able to do it anyway. Right. So when you receive this kind of advice that's like makes you feel like kind of sick to your stomach, but you know that it's the right thing to do, then I guarantee you it probably is the right thing to do. And then if you don't know how to do it, then I invite you to join us inside of the Women's Leadership Accelerator to figure out how to do it, what to say, right? And then once you start to get used to what to say and how to do it, and it's like you're like, "Oh, I'm getting more comfortable with this. I'm getting more confident with this." Then you start to have even more allyship meetings. You're starting to get behind more closed doors. You're understanding the politics. You're able to see things for what they are. You're able to open up possibilities for yourself. Like, right? This is when truly, truly, we become owners of our career, right? It's not enough just to speak up and to say, hey, I want a promotion. You should promote me. We need to be able to advocate for ourselves in a smarter way and to begin to do that in this knowing, like, I get it. This is hard. It's not easy to do this work, but it's going to be life changing. It's going to be career changing. You're going to make more money, have more influence, have higher level executive titles. And then if you do decide to go off and start your own company, you're doing it from a place of empowerment, right? You have built these relationships, you understand the politics, you understand the game that you're playing, and then you can begin to have continued success over and over and over again. So, this was part one of my Behind Closed Doors series. I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of more episodes where we're going to be opening up and revealing some of those ways that you can begin, even just in the first 3 months, the first quarter of 2026, where you can start to open up doors for yourself and begin to get yourself into those positions of influence and power, because recognition, power, and influence is your birthright. And I am so thankful and excited to help you get there. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Women Changing Leadership with Stacy Mayer. If you enjoyed this episode, you are absolutely going to love and benefit from the work that we're doing inside of the Women's Leadership Accelerator. This month-to-month membership program is unlike anything else in the market. We are single-handedly flipping the unemployment rates on their head. It is the only place on the internet where you can actually get yourself not only a job offer, but one that has a higher salary, a higher title, and more recognition and influence than you ever could have imagined in your career. Inside the Women's Leadership Accelerator, we are getting women promoted. We are getting them multiple higher level job offers. And I want that to happen for you. Join us in this one-of-a-kind program. You're going to get coaching directly from me, my executive mentors who are also hiring managers who are doing the work, who have worked with me personally for the past 3 to 5 years. We are here inside of this accelerator program to work with you personally to begin to elevate your leadership to that next level. This is exactly what you have been looking for, and I am here to deliver it to you. Best thing, it's month to month. So you can come in, join us, get access to all of my training materials, my weekly live interactive calls, and you can begin to bring your friends into this community. It is the most corporate badass community on the market. I can't wait to see you in there. Go to authenticallypowerfulwomen.com. We are changing the face of the leadership table one promotion at a time. I can't wait to see you there.